The Chicago White Sox avoided the sweep and snapped their 8-game losing streak by hanging on to beat the Minnesota Twins 4-3 on Thursday afternoon, despite not hitting a home run during this series and going just 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position on Thursday. The White Sox did just enough to get the job done. Lucas Giolito had his typical rough first inning, but settled down after that, and Jose Abreu hit his second double in as many games. White Sox start a 3-game series with the Padres in San Diego on Friday night.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong die-hard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTV. Really appreciate you letting me steal some of your time to talk White Sox. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's the last Friday night game of the season, and it's in beautiful San Diego. The White Sox manufactured runs and got some help from Minnesota as they avoided being swept for the third straight series. Can the White Sox finish the season above 500, and does it even really matter? State of the White Sox, they are 77-79, back in sole possession of second place in the AL Central. With just 6 games remaining. White Sox took care of the Twins Thursday afternoon, beating them 4-3. Sox snapped an 8-game losing streak and avoided the sweep as they now are in San Diego for 3 games. If you haven't heard, the White Sox are officially eliminated from postseason opportunities this season. Just unbelievable. The Sox only spent 11 days in first place this season. Last time they saw first place was April 20th. Their biggest lead this year was 2 games. Compare that to 2021. The White Sox spent 152 days in first place. This year, in the championship window, a lot of folks predicting the White Sox to not only represent the American League in the World Series, but win the World Series. And the White Sox only spent 11 days in first place, missing postseason action. Was this season so bad it was good? This was a question I was asking myself during Thursday's afternoon game, the series finale against the Twins. Positively bad is what I was kind of calling it, meaning positive things will probably occur as a result of how bad things went. Never did I think things would be so bad this year that serious changes would need to be made at all levels of this organization. But honestly, nothing truly will change, I guess, until ownership changes. It could just be addition by subtraction this offseason. We shall see. One of the a few bright spots this season. My son turned 5 months old on Thursday, and thankfully, he will have zero memory of this season. He may ask questions. He might be wondering what happened in 2022, but it's probably best just to never willingly bring up this season. Yoan Moncada missed his second game of the series on Thursday, dealing with soreness, according to Miguel Cairo. Fouled a pitch off the top of his foot Tuesday night in the 9th inning. It was against Minnesota's closer, Duran, who throws like 103 miles per hour. Miguel Cairo does expect Moncada to play over the final 6 games. Yohan Moncada played in 144 games in 2021. In this year, has only played in 98 games, and who knows, he might break 100 depending on how that foot feels. Of course, he did not break with the team after spring training at the beginning of this year due to an injury. The difference in those games from last year to this year, and probably a variety of so many issues, it would take a whole episode to kind of break down, is why Yohan Moncada is such a polarizing figure, I feel, with the fan base. Got to play with the guys you have, and with just a handful of games left, I would not be surprised if Moncada sits for the rest of this season. No home runs for the Sox offense once again, but I'm going to tell you why productive outs played a critical role in the White Sox victory. More on that in a moment. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's talk offense here on Thursday. Coming into the game, the White Sox scored 21 runs during that 8-game losing streak, had not hit a home run since Moncada's solo shot against Detroit at home on Sunday. Ended up being the only run in the game for the Sox. Got to fast forward here to the 3rd inning. Right fielder for Minnesota, Wallner, he gambled on a play and he lost. Dove for a Romy Gonzalez liner. Went all the way to the wall. Josh Harrison was on the base paths at the time, came around to score, and the White Sox took advantage of bad defense by an opponent. It was a triple for Romy Gonzalez. Could the Sox get him home from third with nobody out? Local boy Mark Payton singled home Gonzalez. His first career RBI. Game was tied at 2 at that moment. Sox just with 3 hits after 4 innings. Kind of a slow game for a while here. 6th inning, White Sox did have something going. Payton and Abreu with base hits. First and second with nobody out, and Gavin Sheets at the plate. A ground ball advances runners to second and third. It was maybe a bit unorthodox, but a very productive out by Gavin Sheets. Next up, Andrew Vaughn with a sac fly, and the White Sox take a 3-2 lead. Sox have been missing those productive outs. I know it's weird to say, but when runners especially have been on second and third, and there has not been advancement, or runners at first and second, and we cannot get those runners moved along with an at-bat, it has been troubling. It's been hurtful. And here you have a perfect situation. Gavin Sheets, you don't need to do too much. Move those guys over. Maybe it wasn't his intention, but he did. And then you've got Andrew Vaughn, was able to drive something deep into the outfield, deep enough for a sacrifice fly. Simple manufacturing runs, especially when the home run is not happening. 8th inning, Minnesota decided to pull some White Sox foolishness, and the Sox were able to take advantage of an error and pass ball to get Mark Payton to third. Jose Abreu blasted an RBI double. 4-3 White Sox. Sox could not bring Abreu home, despite the fact that he was on second base with nobody out. It remained a 1-run lead. So here I am talking about, productive outs. And then, of course, there's the production and lack thereof with runners in scoring position. Sox had several of those moments in Thursday's game. During this losing streak, there have been moments, but that has been another thing that, the reason why they were losing, they just didn't give runners on base. And on Thursday, it definitely could have been more than a 4-3 game. And that eighth inning was one of those examples. Ninth inning, Sox looking for an insurance run, but that did not happen. 4 runs was enough. 7 hits, 2 extra base hits, a double by Jose Abreu, a second double in as many games, and then that triple by Romy Gonzalez when Minnesota's right fielder kind of misplayed a line drive. Sox did not hit a home run in the entire series. And talking about that runners in scoring position situation, Sox were 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position in the series finale on Thursday. How about that pitching and defense? Well, Lucas Giolito was on the hill. He has been up and down this season, more down, I would say. And he's talked about it, a lot of different quotes and interviews he's given. It sounds like he knows what's been going on. And, it'll be an interesting offseason for him, especially with the opportunity of being able to talk with trainers, with Ethan Katz. There will be no lockout. But coming into the game, last 5 starts for Lucas Giolito against the Minnesota Twins, 3 wins, 2.32 ERA, 9 walks and 34 strikeouts in 31 innings. Pretty good numbers for Giolito. In the first, however, it's here we go again. Typical Giolito this year, giving runs up early, allowed the bases loaded, and then Gordon ripped a changeup for a double. That was not a competitive changeup. It was almost like he knew it was coming. 2 runs scored quickly, 2-0 Minnesota. Giolito allowed 4 hits and threw 28 pitches in the first inning. However, that was it for Giolito. He was lights out the rest of his outing. He was done after 5 innings, though. So final line, 5 innings, 4 hits, and they were all issued in the first inning. 2 earned runs, again, all issued in the first inning. 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. Giolito's ERA, 5.00. He threw 93 pitches through 5 innings on Thursday. So, again, classic Giolito, at least from this year. Rough beginning to the outing, but settled down nicely. How can a pitcher recreate the first inning or so in the bullpen? That's what I was wondering. If the first inning and sometimes second inning is so problematic for Giolito, is there a way while he is warming up in the bullpen to try to get into some sort of mentality, have some strategy, competition, or challenge to get him thinking like it's already the first inning? Get through that in your bullpen session, and then you start the game and you feel like, I already survived that. I don't know. It's a mental thing. Maybe there's something that he can work on in the offseason, but not a bad outing, again, after that rough first inning. 6th inning, Jimmy Lambert came in, and he let the leadoff hitter get on with a walk. That's been a problem for the bullpen the last few games. Billy Hamilton, White Sox legend, came in as a pinch runner. Billy stole second with ease. So the Twins were in business with a runner on second with nobody out, trailing the Sox by 1 run at this point. And then Billy Hamilton stole third just as easily. Twins executed a perfect bunt. Imagine that. And it handcuffed the White Sox defense, and Hamilton scored to tie the game at 3. 7th inning, Ronaldo Lopez, again, one of the bright spots of 2022. He held the Twins quiet in the 7th, and then Kendall Graveman came in a critical spot, trying to hold on to a 1-run lead late in the game, and he got the job done. And then Liam Hendriks, where have you been? Haven't seen Liam Hendriks in quite some time. I forget that Liam Hendriks pitched for the Minnesota Twins way back when, 2011, 12, and 13. He was a starter at that point, at least an emerging starter. Hendricks's last time pitching was on September 20th. but very little rust on Liam Hendricks. He was hitting 98 miles per hour, 100 miles per hour in command, had control, a strikeout with a changeup, a strikeout with a fastball, gave up a walk, and then a ground out. Game over. White Sox get their first win since September 18th, avoid the sweep, and snap the 8-game losing streak. Sox head out west to play another second-place team, but the Padres are, of course, in a much better spot. I'm going to tell you why. If anything, the White Sox will have some fun this weekend. More on that in a moment. Sox in San Diego Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's the last road trip of the season. Friday night, Davis Martin will be on the hill. Saturday, Dylan Cease. And Sunday, Lance Lynn. San Diego, 86-69, 17 games over 500. However, 21 games back in the division. Thanks to the Dodgers being absolutely unstoppable. So San Diego has the second wild card spot right now in the National League. They would be the 5th seed if the playoffs started today, playing the Atlanta Braves. San Diego has been aggressive these last several seasons, gone after position players and pitchers, obviously. Landed Juan Soto at the trade deadline this year. But when you're in a division with the LA Dodgers, they're at 107 wins right now. It's almost always going to be about the wild card. If you made the trip or you are on your way to San Diego, enjoy the experience. San Diego, one of my absolute favorite cities. I've walked past the stadium, but never caught a game, definitely on my stadium bucket list. Folks, thank you so very much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcasts. We're on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Hey, thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up on the next episode, I'll recap the weekend that was for our White Sox in San Diego and hopefully be celebrating a White Sox sweep. Really appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski, and until next time, go Sox.